Welcome to Fusion Tonight. Are you ready to worship? We have music with COVID Oswald. Our special guest tonight is Sheila Corsbie. And now, here's your host, John Cooper.
Welcome to Fusion Tonight. I'm your host, John Cooper. How are we doing tonight? Yeah. Give it up for Mr. Harry Fransdahl. Stick around. We have Late Night with Harry Fransdahl right after this. I am so excited to worship with you guys tonight. We have a fantastic show, but before we can get started, we got to talk about all this crazy stuff going on in the news. I was reading this today. The CEO of Netflix was having an interview, and he was talking about competition. He said his only real competition is not other companies, it's just people falling asleep. Which I thought was odd, because that's a lot like a casino saying their only real competition is when you finally go broke. We got to keep them hooked. I saw this, I don't know if you were watching, Sean Spicer's press conference was interrupted by Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski this morning. Popped in right on his press conference. And oddly enough, it was the most normal thing that's happened during a Sean Spicer press conference. It's the first time he left, and everyone's like, that went well today. That actually went well today. And finally, people are picking on poor President Trump. I saw this. There was a video of Melania having to nudge him to remind him he forgot to put his hand on his heart during the national anthem. So there's a video of her nudging him to remind him. Trump's playing it off there. He was like, that's no big deal. You should see what happens when I forget her birthday. It's more than a nudge. This I can tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the man on the piano, Mr. COVID Oswald. COVID Oswald, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to see you guys. We only have 2 weeks left of Fusion. Did you know that? Only 2 weeks left of Fusion tonight. Then we got a summer break, but fear not. April 30th, we are doing Fusion Tonight in the morning on Sunday morning. Mr. Sam Barr is excited. He gets a break, so come check us out. So it's going to be great. I think we have another one in July, maybe, over the summer. So we'll try to, we don't want to have you guys have withdrawals, is what we're saying. So we have such a fantastic show for you guys tonight. We have COVID on the piano, and we have such an amazing speaker, continuing our Law & Order 360 series. Sheila Corsbie is going to be talking tonight. I'm so excited to hear her. But before we can have her speak, we got to do all the other stuff that we like to do in worship, starting with our open mic time, which looks a lot like Joys and Concerns, if you are more familiar with a traditional worship. So this is your chance to share whatever's on your heart and mind, whatever you want to lift up. I usually like to start. I have two things. The first thing, if you follow football news or anything, you saw Aaron Hernandez. He was a former tight end of the New England Patriots, was found dead in his cell this morning from an apparent suicide. And it weighed a lot on my heart this morning, just from a standpoint of how people reacted to it. Social media, news, and whatnot. With a lot of people like, yeah, good, glad he's gone, or making really what I make a lot of offensive jokes, and these were like above my level of what I consider to be acceptable. But like on a serious note, it bothered me that's how callously we were able to throw away a life. And look, I'm not downplaying what he did. He was convicted of murder. He was acquitted of two others, but when we come to church and we read the gospel and we hear our phenomenal pastors preach, one of our common themes is about grace. It's this idea that no matter what we do, we can always be restored. And this idea that we were so willing to throw away a life, I don't know. You know, despite what he did, he was still a father. He still had parents. And despite the fact that he was going to live a life in prison for life without parole, I have to believe, you know, there was still a chance that he could have been restored in God. And that won't happen now. And so that's weighing on me, so I wanted to share that, I guess, for a food for thought. You know, as we prepare to listen to someone that's been in the system before, you know, what it really means to extend grace, what it really means to give second chances, and to give people the chance to find God and to turn a new leaf. So I want to lift that up as food for thought about how we look and treat people that have done wrong. How willing are we to give grace, and how willing would Christ be to give grace? And are we emulating him in the words that we use? So that was the first thing. The second thing, my sister joined the church. She's been a wonderful new addition to the church. I've been really excited to see her grow here. She is not here tonight. One of her close friends overdosed on pills tonight. So she is at the hospital there. I have not received word how her friend is doing, but her friend's husband, I know, is quite a wreck. So her name is Martha. I would like to have Martha in our prayers tonight. I'd like to pray for the doctors that they're able to do the work they need to do, and obviously all of her friends and family. You know, suicide's tough, and I'm sure there's more than one person in here that's been affected by it, carried out suicide or attempted or otherwise. So prayers for healing and prayers for good news. So hate to be long-winded, but I would like to open the floor. Is there any other joys, concerns, stories, lighthearted or otherwise, anyone would like to lift up tonight? Yes, Sam.
Yesterday, this lovely lady sitting beside me and I celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary.
Woo! 30 years. That is amazing. Congratulations. Look, they still sit together. They're still deeply in love. We're so happy for you guys. And you guys are wonderful additions to the church. So congrats. That's awesome, guys. Keep it going. Jackson.
I just got news that the Cubs won.
Woo! Go Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go! Lisa.
Many of you know that my sister was put in hospice care last week, so she is failing, but feels good. She's hospice care at my parents' house, so keep them in your prayers in particular. They're living with it, where I just kind of really out of their life.
We'll lift her up, and I encourage you as you leave to please give Lisa a hug. I think hugs are good for healing, so prayers and hugs to you. I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. Cindy.
This lovely lady has a birthday today.
It's Laura's birthday. It's a birthday today, and we know what to do, right? A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Laura. Happy birthday to you. I might have sang that wrong. might have sang that incorrectly, but that is all right. Is there any other news, joys, concerns, or otherwise that we'd like to lift up tonight? Woo! That is great news. Great news. Yes.
If you want to see something beautiful, go to Ranchero Road and walk at the Greenbelt. The whole floor of the forest or woods is full of bluebells.
Ooh.
It's lovely.
Oh, that would be a great walk. Gabby, we have stuff to do now. Thank you. All right. If there's no one else, let us bow our heads and let us be in an attitude of prayer. Gracious and loving God, we are so blessed to be here today, to be able to gather in this space with one another as we come together and center our hearts to worship you. As we prepare to listen to Sheila speak and we prepare to have your message and your words flow through her as a way to inspire us and to help lead us to walk side by side with you, to become restored in you, to live the best Christian lives that we can possibly live. Lord, as we gather in this space, we ask that you hear all of the prayers that we have shared out loud, and you hear all of the prayers that are on our hearts. We ask that you are able to provide us with comfort and a sense of calm as we deal with all of the joys and concerns that life throws in our way on a daily basis. Lord, we don't know how things will always turn out. We don't always know what our future holds, but we know, as always, that it is you that holds our future. So we ask that as we approach whatever that future may be, we can do so being a shining light on this world. We can do so by putting our best foot forward and helping as many people along the way as we can. And as we pray for all these things, we pray them in the prayer that your Son, Jesus Christ, taught us. In Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Very nice. I like the closing there. It was very stern. Yeah, I like that. All right, we now move into our offering time. Normally we'd have a guest, but we, during this Law & Order 360 series, we've been doing more to give time to our speakers. So we're going to jump right into offering. Real quick, it is Change a Child's Story. So all month, really till the end of Fusion, which is next week, sad face, all of our proceeds are going to go to Changing a Child's Story. So this is an initiative the United Methodist Church started as a means of building relationships and helping out academically by giving books and reading books to kids. So since we've started this initiative, we've provided over 3,000 books to Lincoln School students and teachers, and we've blessed our own First Kids Preschool with Valentine and Christmas story books. We've raised over $15,000 so far for this program. Yes. And this includes matching funds for the Lone Zach Endowment. So we've raised a lot of money for this. We've provided over 1,000 hours of time in the last 2 years to Reading Buddies, K through 3rd in the school across the street over at Lincoln. Just an absolutely amazing program, and we just want to keep it going. So as we do our offering, we have a jar over on the table over here during the song. You can stand up, make a donation. You can wait to do it after service, whatever's more comfortable for you. But we just want to keep raising as much money and everything as we can. So whether your offering is monetary, whether it's prayers, volunteer, whatever it is, it's a great cause, and we ask that you give generously. So this is your time for offering. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to get hyped for our guest. I am so honored that she was able to come to speak with us tonight. We had advertised her as an ex-offender, as someone that's been on the other side of bars in the justice system. She is someone that has held on to her faith, and she is someone that's currently in School for Lay Ministry, and she's actually one of our advocates in the United Methodist Church that lobbies at the Capitol building. So she has been an absolute wonderful soldier in Christ, and we couldn't be more happy to have her. Please give it up for your speaker, Sheila Corsbie.
Ooh, these lights, I don't like them. Thank you, John. And first of all, I want to thank Chris, who I think is up there. No, I can't see him, but.
Yes, I'm up there.
Okay. For inviting me. He and I both serve on the outside council for Women at the Well. That's how I met him, and so he asked me to come up and share my story. As Chris said, I am an ex-offender. However, I was in a meeting earlier this year with the Department of Corrections director, and he said, I don't like you to refer to them as ex-offenders. They are residents of wherever they are. I was in Mitchellville, Iowa, the Iowa Department of Corrections. But he said they're They're residents. So I am a former resident of Mitchellville. I understand there's a parole officer in the group, and hi. I might have a few things to say, but I hope I don't offend you. Okay, you probably heard it already, right? I'm a wanderer, so bear with me if I wander too far. Tell me to come back. How did I get to Mitchellville? I got to Mitchellville. First of all, I was baptized in the Methodist Church in Des Moines. I was there until I was 6. My parents moved to a small town up by Ames, and we had 2 choices. We could either be Lutheran or Lutheran. They didn't want to drive the 6 miles to go to the Methodist Church, so I grew up in the Lutheran Church. Was there until I graduated from high school. What's funny is my parents, did I go off?
No.
My parents retired and moved to Arizona, and they drove 20 miles to go to church. Go figure. Must have been a thing of the 60s. So as I grew up, I was in a dysfunctional family. There was abuse that went on. There was just, I'm adopted. I was a year and a half when my parents got me. And so there was just a lot of small town, and I just never thought I fit in. I didn't like to talk about what was going on. I was a real private person. Graduated, went on to college. In high school, I was in sports. Went to college, so then I thought, well, I should drink because I never drank before. Got kicked out of college because of drinking. Then decided I should do the marriage thing. I moved up here, was married for 2.5 years, got a divorce, and thus the downfall really, really came because there was a lot of things that happened. Never talked about the abuse. I just held on to it. So I went from church to church to church looking for someplace where I fit in. You know, the different churches that say, well, if you believe this or you believe this, you're not going to go to heaven. If you've done this, then you're going to go to hell. You need to be rebaptized. The whole 9, excuse me, for the kids, the whole 9 yards. So then I got into criminal activity. My first real criminal activity, I lived here in Cedar Falls, and I was on a bowling league. I stole money from the bowling league to support my drinking. Got caught, charges, put me on probation. Never liked to be on probation, never really successfully completed a probation, but that got me into the criminal system. I was in there for probably close to 30 years. I had chance after chance after chance. I had numerous charges, fines, restitution, it was a nightmare. And I just kept spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. You know, got into drinking more. They told me to go to counseling. I went to counseling. That didn't work because I still didn't want to talk about it. So finally in the 90s, so then I got into politics. And that's a whole different gamut. And I was living out of suitcases, I was traveling, and the drinking really, really, really escalated. Then I got into prescription drugs. So I understand the overdose because I tried twice to kill myself with overdose. So in 1988, I went to treatment, 30-day treatment program, got out of there, and I have managed by the grace of God to stay sober since '88. But my criminal activity still continued. So finally in 1990, and the worst thing that I did, and it was to support my habit, plus I would never have enough money to pay bills. So I would write checks and they would bounce. That was my crime, was checks, writing bad checks on my own personal accounts. My last criminal activity was I had met this elderly man, and he was really, really nice. Well, I took advantage of him and I stole over $10,000 from him by him writing me a check, and I kept saying, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back. Well, that never happened. So I was charged. Was charged with first-degree theft, which is a 10-year sentence. Well, back then I thought, 10-year sentence? I can't spend 10 years in prison. Well, by the grace of God, they gave me probation. So once again, I was in the probation system. Do you think I would quit my my activity? I'd sit down with last, but ultimately I ended up having charges in 14 counties. Thank goodness Black Hawk was not one of them. But, so then I knew I was going to go to prison. But again, the 10-year scared me. So what any good criminal person would do that doesn't want to go to prison, I fled the state, thinking they won't come to Missouri and catch me. Well, what happened was I was in Missouri for a year and a half, and I was working, and I was just, not drinking. I was having a good time. I made new friends. I got stopped one night for speeding. Gee, there was a nationwide warrant out for me. Go figure. So I was brought back to Des Moines. I'm from the Des Moines area. Was brought back to Des Moines. And in December of 2003, I went to prison. Being there, my 10-year sentence automatically cut by 5 years. So I only had to really serve 5 years. When I went to prison, I basically had no friends. My parents had enough. They weren't talking to me. I have one sibling. He wasn't talking to me. And basically, to this day, we have a real strained relationship. So I had basically no one when I went to prison. But I knew by going to prison that was God's way of telling me, okay, you have the opportunity, you have the chance to turn your life around. I was 50 years old when I was in Mitchellville. I was one of the oldest ones there. When I was there, there's so many there that they kind of fast track them and they try to get them out to make room for more to come in. But when I was there, I was talking to my counselor, and I volunteered to go through, they don't have it anymore, but there was a program called STARS, Sisters Together Achieving Recovery treatment program. I didn't do it because I had a drinking problem or a drug problem. I did it because I wanted to change my life. I wanted to get out of my criminal thinking, and I wanted to start living a life to become a productive member of society. While I was there, I went to church every Sunday at the Sacred Place. They did not have Women at the Well when I was there. I understand you're very familiar with that. They didn't have it when I was there, but it took me a year to go through the treatment program, and I got out, and I just was telling this to somebody the other day. I get a kick out of it now, but at the time, I didn't get a kick out of it. The day I was to be released, I had had a really bad infection, okay? And as you probably know, when you're in a prison system, you end up in Iowa City to go to the doctor. I'd already been to Iowa City, nothing had changed. So the day I was to be released, I still had this infection. So the doctor in Mitchellville called Iowa City, and he tells me, and he tells my counselor, and he tells my new parole officer that, well, she's going to go to Iowa City for a couple days, and they're going to give her heavy-duty antibiotics, so she'll be over the weekend. Okay. I was going to it's not a halfway house, it's called Beacon of Life in Des Moines. They have programs there where they help us for budgeting and finding a job and that type of stuff. So I was going to go to this place. So I go to Iowa City. About an hour after I'm there, the CO, because there was a CO with me, I go in shackles and I go in a orange jumpsuit. He comes in, he says, well, you're being released. What? You're being released. Okay, you're going to take me back, aren't you? No, I'm leaving. I want my orange, I need to get the orange jumpsuit and the shackles. What am I supposed to do? Well, I don't know, but, that was my first opportunity to run, and I wasn't even where I was supposed to be. I mean, I was in Iowa City. I wasn't even back here. So thank goodness at the hospital they had a social worker that came in and they talked to me. They gave me a set of scrubs. They bought me a bus ticket to get back to Des Moines, and they took me to the bus station. I never really had a thought of running, which I think is a grace of God. Because I very easily could have gone on that bus, gone to Chicago, gone back to Kansas City or whatever. And I think I was too scared, number one. But, so I went back and everybody had been in communication, so everybody knew what was going on. So I get back to Des Moines at 1 o'clock the next morning. Because they didn't keep me, they didn't give me IV antibiotics. So that started my journey for my new life. So when I'm out, then the parole officers kick in. You have to go meet your parole officer. You have to pay a restitution fee. You have to have all this stuff. You got to get a job. You got to do this. You got to do this. And I think what I'm hearing is it's much tougher now than it was back 11 years ago. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I got out in November of 2005. So I have been out for 11 and a half years. I successfully completed my parole, only by the grace of God, May 2009. I got involved in a church down there, but I still wasn't real committed. I wasn't sure what I wanted. But while I was in prison, my parents did come and visit me twice. And my worst fear ever, was that my parents would die and I would be in prison. And I probably wouldn't be able to go to their funeral because they lived in Arizona. But I will say, because of some of the changes that I started making, I had the best relationship with my parents the last 5 years. And that, again, is only by the grace of God and me starting to learn how to be a daughter, how not to use them as my victim, because I didn't think I had any victims. I'm writing a check on my own personal account. Why does anybody else a victim? Hello, Sheila. So anyway, they are both deceased. But as time went on, and I just kept, some days I didn't want to, but I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I started making some friends. Some of my friends that I had before I went to prison started coming back into my life. Some friends still today aren't in my life. So really, they're not my friends. If they couldn't stand by me while I was in prison, they're not my friends. So my mom died in 2011. And we were talking about churches, and and she asked me what I was doing, where I was going, and whatever. And I said, well, I really haven't found one yet. And she said, well, why don't you go back to Grace, which was the church I was baptized in. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, why don't I? So I did. And at that point, social justice started to be very important to me. Because, see, I've been in prison now. I know what they don't have. I know how the system works. I know all that stuff. So I started being involved in that. And I started going to some meetings, and I started getting involved at Grace. And then some things happened, and they were doing stuff that I didn't want to be a part of. I didn't want to believe. The associate pastor there at that time really took me under her wings, started doing Bible studies with me, taking me to different things, and thus that really helped me also become deeper in my faith and really become believing in God. Because I always thought, well, yeah, there's a higher power out there, because when I was in AA, they talk about higher power. But that's when I really started thinking about, and believing in God. And then a couple of years later, I switched churches in Des Moines, and then I had the opportunity I knew there was an opening on the outside council at Women at the Well, and I thought, wow, you know, that'd be, a good way for me to grow and to be able to serve. So I talked to Pastor Lee about it, and she needed to take it to the council, and they never had a former offender on the outside council before. And she did, and then they said, we want you on board. Because you have the opportunity to, talk about stuff from a different angle. And so I have been on the outside council, thus that's how I met Chris. Since being on the outside council at Women at the Well, my relationship with God has really grown. I never used to pray every day. I pray every day today. I still didn't really worry about, well, how are you doing or what are you doing? I was still really kind of focused on my inner circle. I've really gotten out of that now. Thus, I wouldn't have been up here because I never ever have really spoken. I'm like, I'm not going to speak in front of, But outside counsel has allowed me. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Right Next Door conference through the Iowa conference through Women at the Well. Yeah, the Right Next Door conference. We had a big one a year and a half ago in Des Moines or Ankeny. What it's about is how churches accept people like myself that have been places in prison, jail, county jails, or our next door neighbors that have a problem, whether it's their abuse or whatever it is. How do we welcome them into the churches? And so I've shared my story at a couple of churches. One place I went into didn't know my story until I was like introduced, and I introduced myself as some of them. Like, well, and you're in our church? Okay, I'm not going to steal your chair. I'm not going to steal, any of that. So I'm, and then Chris invited me. So it is getting easier as I do it. But anyway, so I started doing that, and I'm like, if I can just help one person, that's what I believe is what God is wanting me to do, is just share my story, and be a messenger. And so I've been doing that, and then also, and I feel this is really an honor, and again, it's only by the grace of God, is that a month and a half ago, I got my yellow badge to go into the prison and worship with the women every Thursday night. And that has been, it's a miracle. It took me a little while to get used to it because hearing the doors clank and everything else. At least now I can leave. But also I can share with them, we're really not allowed to talk to them a lot. We're not allowed to, as being a volunteer, if they want to start really talking to us about something, we have to kind of diffuse that. But it's just an experience because they're glad to see me every week, and I'm glad to see them. 2 weeks ago, I went in, and because I'm also on a reentry team now. I understand you guys have a reentry team here, a couple of them. Best thing, because we didn't have reentry teams when I got out. I've been on a reentry team. This is our fourth lady we're working with. But I went in and shared my story, and one gal came up to me and she says, I thought I knew you. But she was there, she's still there when I was there. But again, I couldn't even really talk to her. So reentry teams are, and it's another way for me to grow because I can share my experience with someone just coming out. How do you deal with parole officers? When everything's coming at them, you know, and best thing is to be honest, you know, and that different stuff. We can help them take them for job interviews. We can help them go get a bus pass. You know, we never help them financially, but that's a good thing. And like John mentioned, the pastor that I had in Des Moines is now in north central Iowa. And about 8 months ago, she said, Sheila, she said, I think with your ministry of social justice, I think you should go through the School of Lay Ministry. And I'm like, say what? And she said, yeah. She said, you know, you have a real message, and I really think you need to be a lay leader. I said, okay, I'll pray about it. And then another person heard wind of it. Oh, yeah, I think you'd be really good at that. You know, we'll help you, scholarships or whatever. And then Pastor Lee got wind of it. Oh, yeah, I really think you should go. And then my associate pastor at my church did too. And he had been through the School of Lay Ministry. So I had asked him I don't think I'm the one to go there. I'm not going to be a pastor. He said, well, what are your concerns? And I told him, and he said, same ones I had 10 years ago. Think you should go. So I prayed about it, and I prayed about it. Well, I'm in the School of Lay Ministry now. But it has been a really, really rewarding thing so far, because I'd never really been, even in church, I'd never really been part of a community. We got 14 in our class for our first year. We've got our private Facebook page, and we all just click and get along, and it's like people don't care what you wear, they don't, you know. It's just we're all growing in our faith. We're all in different places, but we're all growing, and so that's been really, really cool too. And then the other thing that I'm doing, because I'm also involved with social justice issues and criminal justice, 3 years ago, I was asked to be on the Iowa Annual Conference advocacy team, which means we lobby at the Capitol. This year's been a really interesting year, and it's about over. But again, there I can share my experiences with people. I'm in meetings with, like I said before, I was in meetings with the Department of Corrections. I'm in other meetings and whatever. Because I feel my ministry is, like I said before, I've been there, I know what it's like, and somebody needs to advocate for these women. Because a lot of them don't have advocates for themselves. And these women in prison, I mean, I've been there. We're all good people, you know. These women have talents that are unbelievable. And some will never get out because they're lifers. Some will be out. Some go back because they don't follow the PO's rule. With that being said, I also think POs are pretty lenient. You know, I think people sometimes I think they give them the opportunity to hang themselves, if that's the right thing to say. But yet, honesty is the biggest thing. So I really don't have anything bad to say about POs. But, you know, it is what it is. The statistics of women in prison, and I fell right into those statistics. Over 90% of the women in Mitchellville have some sort of abuse issues. Over 50% of the women in Mitchellville have some sort of addiction, alcohol, drugs. Over 60% of the women, I hear something. Over 60% of the women have mental health issues. So, and I fell into that. I mean, I had mental health stuff going on. I had abuse issues. I had, not at the time, but I was a recovering alcoholic, you know. So somebody needs to advocate for them. And, I feel it's God's calling that I do that. I know that my relationship is much deeper than it ever has been, and it continues to be. Pretty much all my friends now are around the church. I have pastors that are friends, I have lay leaders, I have Chris, I have people on the outside council. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary at Women at the Well. And I have people that hold me accountable. If they think I'm straying, they'll be calling me on it, which I want. That's what I want. But I also think that God has a funny sense of humor sometimes. And there's all sorts of different episodes, but I'm going to talk about this week. Because on Sunday night and Monday, I was going to call Chris and I was going to say, I'm not coming.
What?
But let me tell you why, okay? I, for the last 7 years, had a roommate who, because of financial reasons, we lived together. And there was a lot of emotional abuse that went on there. Emotional abuse that she was, putting on me. And I talked to people about it. I talked to my friend, I talked about it earlier, up from north central Iowa. And anyway, she decided back in October, she's moving to Colorado. I'm going to go to Colorado. No, why would I move to Colorado? I got everything here, But, well, she had a dog, unfortunately, who was diabetic and blind. So she left in March, left the dog with me. Oh, well, can I leave the animal? What am I supposed to say? So anyway, she came back over the weekend. We had a massive fight. She stole $375 from me. And I was not a happy person at all. I said some things that I shouldn't have said. I wrote a nasty email to her because I was mad. And what happened was I let God out of the picture. And I thought, I can't go up there and talk to those people. Because I'm not, But what it's taught me is, even though this happened, where they talk about when people go low, you go high. Was a big quote of Joe Obama's. I had to go high. I had to shut up with what I was saying. I had to just walk away from her. I had to read on the Saturday night. I had to go, went and stayed in a motel. It was Sunday when she left, and I was enjoying Thanksgiving dinner, Easter, with a couple of my friends. That I came home and found out this other had happened. That's when I shot her the nasty email, but then I did call my friend and was like, oh, you're not going to believe what happened, blah, 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 blah. But at least because of me working on changing my life, I could. I had people I could call. I know that I'm never it's a changing thing every single day. I know I have to read my Bible every day. I know I have to pray every day. And I have to rely on God. Because if I start relying on other people, it's a pain. So Thursday night I go to one more, again, I go to the Women at the Well. It's a standard Thursday night thing. I couldn't wish for anything different. Did I dream 11 years ago I'd be standing here talking to you? Even if did I dream 4 years ago, I would be standing here talking to you? Not. But that's what God is doing in my life. So anyway, I guess that's pretty much, that's who I am. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? Yes, no? Feel free if you do. If you don't, that's great too.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Oh, it's Chris.
Check. Can you hear me now? No, I just have a comment. When you mentioned what you told us tonight, it's been and I don't want to take John's thunder if he's going to summarize what you said, but this is a story of a life that started out in difficulty, and stayed that way for a long time. But then you figured out how to overcome, and you tick those things off one by one: the alcoholism and the criminal activity, and then you found some faith. As you were explaining this to us, one of those milestones that you mentioned was getting your yellow badge, and I just don't know if the folks in the room really understand the magnitude of that, because they don't let just anybody be a volunteer in the prison, especially if you have a history like yours. So for you to get that, they check those people out pretty carefully. The folks that are going to be going inside and working with the folks with the residents, I guess we're calling them now. And so, you must have really shown some, this isn't a question, it's just a comment. You must have really shown, you must have shown the folks at Mitchellville that you were a different person. And it's a testimony to your ability as an overcomer. And I applaud that. I think it's great. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a really great PO. I mean, I really did. So, thank you. Yeah.
I, again, don't have a question or comment. I think you're an amazing woman, and I'm blessed. I know this room is, but I'm blessed for having you come and speak tonight. And we've done this like 4 years, and I'm actually moving on. I'll be going to a different church here soon, and I will always remember you. And I'm not just saying that. That's not lip service. You really touched me tonight. And thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a question.
Okay.
A couple of us are on a reentry team, well, 3 of us I know for sure are on a reentry team.
Uh-huh.
And I want, how did you relate to your PO as far as, you were honest, you had to be honest with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you do not have a reentry team. What would you say to a reentry team of how you know whether they're telling you the truth? We get one thing from you, another thing from.
Well,
I'm assuming we need to listen to the PO because they've been around the block the times we have.
well, in the Des Moines area, and I don't know what they do up here, but in the Des Moines area, we know who the person's PO is.
Right.
You're supposed to tell the PO that they're on a reentry team. We are faith-based, but we've had 3 of the 4 that have not attended church. 2 of the 4 made it. The one didn't, but she was doing her own thing. But for me, since I know what what is needed or what should be done, I use the old adage when somebody's going off. I'm like, well, you can't BS a BSer. Because for so many years I was a BSer. So I can most of the time pick up on that.
Yeah, I never had that.
Well,
Sorry, I told you.
no, I understand, but you're gonna know. You're gonna know if somebody's being honest with you or not. Usually, you don't figure it out right away, but a few weeks down the road, have you called her your PO? Yeah. What'd she say? Or will you bring us a copy of your contract with your PO? Sure, no problem. Never see it. Well, I never got one from her. We'll go back and get one from her now.
So they have a contract with them?
Yeah. At least down in Des Moines they do. Or a PO agreement, supervisory fee, probation agreement. Yeah, of what they should be doing. Have you paid a restitution fee? Yeah, which is when you go on parole or probation. Well, I don't know about probation, but parole, you have a supervision fee you have to pay. Usually you have to pay that right away. Have you paid that? Yeah, well, will you bring us a receipt? Well, I don't know where it is. Red flags. So I guess the longer you work with them, if they call you and say, hey, I can't meet with you, A lot of times they could, but they're doing something else. So there's just all sorts of different things that, you know, we can talk about that a little bit more after. So.
Will you say something? I'm under her reentry team too, and our gal just went back into jail for 6 months, and we want to work with her again when she comes back. When they come out, she was over in the what's the name of the place, Laura?
Women's Center.
Women's Center,
Okay.
and she got out because she had a mother there in town,
Mm-hmm.
but her mother was a lot of her problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we found her an apartment. She slept on the floor the first night. But you know, we got donated, you know, beds, chairs, dishes, stuff. Because, you know, you get out and you have absolutely zero. You don't have clothes, you don't have anything. And to set up a household is, I mean, I've done it for my kids and I know how much it costs, you know. And for someone to come out and to face all that pressure of having to do all that, you know, and come up with money for that when you don't have a job, and yeah, I mean, you know, it's just quite a. And she was going to go on disability because she'd done a disability before, but it took a couple months for it to finally kick in. So there was this time there where she had not a whole heck of a lot, and it was just. It's just that, can you say something about how difficult that is for people to come out and if they don't have help, if they don't have any advocates, if they don't have any family or friends that they can get any help from or stay with or?
Well, when I got out, and that's pretty much only what I can speak to, when I got out 11 years ago, I didn't have any family, I didn't have any money, I had nothing. That's the reason why I went to the Beacon of Life in Des Moines, was because of that. Because 9 times out of 10, I don't think they really like them to come out with not having anything. I mean, they're not that mean, and it's not the parole officers, it's the Department of Correction, or the parole board. But if she was living with her mother and that was a problem, I don't think she would be paroled there again. Or if maybe she wasn't paroled there and then she moved there, you know, maybe when she gets out, if there's people that will, I mean, you hate to say the reentry team buys everything. We've not been in that situation, my team. One lady did go and live with her mother, another one, but they had places to be. But I don't think down the road, you know, depending on the situation, but if she got a job, I would think even like Goodwill or people in the church donating stuff. I mean, there's places that will donate stuff, you know. And then the other thing I would say, if you folks want to work with her again, I mean, if you're in contact with her when she's in there, you know, they do have the reentry program. Matter of fact, I was there 2 weeks ago. There's 3 women coming to the Waterloo area. I don't know if she's one of them. I don't know. But she probably could have you again if she wants to.
She's written to Jenny and she wants
Okay.
to.
Yeah, just have her. Brenda is the reentry coordinator at the prison. You know, shoot her a letter and work with that. But you know, every situation is different. There are a lot of obstacles. Biggest thing is to be encouraging. That's
Well, you said it, abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism.
mental health.
Mental health.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, she had them all. I mean,
Right.
she didn't have a start
And
from the beginning.
right, and we have to realize that this day and age, they don't have the services, and they've cut them even more. So they are setting people up for failure. They are setting people up. Mental health patients are going to the prisons because there's no hospital beds for them. So, and then they go to prison and they sit because there's no money for them to get help there. Don't get me started, please.
We could have quite a conversation
We could. So anyway,
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please once again give it up for Sheila Corsbie.
thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming to the show tonight. Sheila, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I think we're all blessed for hearing it, and I hope that as we all leave this place, we can all take your story with us, and we can allow that to fester and grow and help us figure out ways that we can grow and be better every day. So next week, it's the last one, you guys. Laura, is it Bruce or Burris? Bruce. Laura Bruce. Way off. Way off. Laura Bruce will be our last speaker of the season. She is going to give us the perspective of a parole officer. It's going to be really great. We're excited to hear you speak. So hope to see you all next week. And until then, be Christ for one another. Have a good night. Thanks, guys.